Hello, hello, hello. I am the Linux Mensch. Does Linux need antivirus? Can your Linux system get a virus? So today, this is what I'm going to talk about. Now, there is a debate in the Linux world as to whether running a Linux system needs an antivirus software, and some believe you need it, and some believe you don't. And I take the middle ground. So, Linux is a lot safer than Windows and Mac, and that's for several reasons. Number one, people who are making viruses and malware are making them mostly for Windows because Windows is the most popular operating system in the world, and it's used by millions, perhaps billions of people. And Linux is a very, very small percentage of people who are using Linux, so most people who are making viruses and malware don't make them for Linux. So that's number one. Another reason why Linux is a lot safer than Windows and Mac is because when you're downloading software on Linux, you don't go to the internet and just download from any web page executable files or software. When you're running Linux, you download your software from your distribution's software repository, which means that the developers of the Linux system that you're using, they check all the software to make sure there's no malware in them before they post the applications in the repository. And when those applications get updated, again, the developers of your Linux distribution check the applications to make sure that they don't have any malware or viruses in them. So for that second reason, Linux is a lot safer because you're downloading your applications from the software repository of your particular Linux distribution rather than just going on the internet and downloading software from some internet page. So that's number two. And number three, the third reason why Linux is a lot safer than Windows is that your root directory has a password. Your user directory has a password. And when you're downloading software from your Linux distribution software repository, you always have to put your password in. So that's the third reason why Linux is a lot safer. Now, can Linux get a virus? Yes. Have there been viruses for Linux systems? Yes. Do you need to use a software application, an antivirus software application? Yes and no. That's my answer because I'm taking the middle ground. Do I use antivirus software? Yes and no. What do you mean? Well, I don't keep an antivirus software running in the background all the time, but I do have antivirus installed on my system, and maybe once a month I do a check and run a scan, manually run a scan. And the reason why I don't keep it running in the background all the time is because it uses system resources, and I do believe Linux is safer. Now, the other thing to remember also is that whether or not you get a virus is dependent on your practices. The way you surf the internet. When you're surfing the internet, you have to be very careful to what pages you go to and to what you download and to what you click on. And you have to be very wise that a lot of links and pop-ups, you shouldn't be clicking them on unless you know exactly where they are and where they come from. So having said that, I'm going to take a look at the antivirus that I use. So let's get to it. So today I'm running a virtual machine of Arch Linux with the Qtile window manager. And I'm going to open up a terminal. So in this Qtile window manager, of course, you don't use a mouse. You can use a mouse to close some of your applications and also to change workspaces, and that's about it. So to open the terminal, I'm going to hold the super key down and press enter. To switch workspaces, you hold the super key down and go to the workspace you want to be on. So I'm going to press 4. I'm going to hold the super key down and hold down 4, and now I'm on that workspace. Now I'm going to hold the super key down and hit F, and that's going to open up Firefox. Now I'm going to type in ClamAV, hit enter. Now I'm at the ClamAV website. So this is the ClamAV website. It's a very old antivirus program. It's been around for a long time. It gets updated on a regular basis, and it's available in Windows, Mac, and Linux. So this is the web page. Oops, I went a little bit faster. This is the main web page. There's a documentation page, and has a good table of contents with all kinds of articles and ways to install it and different types of things you can do with it. And see, that goes all the way down there like that. Now, if we go back to the home page, there's also download. So if I click on download, you can see it's for Windows, Linux, and Mac. Now, there is a place here where you can click it, and you can download it onto Linux from here, but I wouldn't advise that. I would advise that you download this from your Linux distribution. Now, all Linux distributions have this in their repo, and you can download it from there. And even somewhere here on the page where I read, and I don't remember exactly what part of this internet it was, but there's somewhere on this web page where it even tells you that if you're downloading Linux, to download it from the repo. So having said that, I'm going to close this. I'm going to quit out of there. I'm going to go back to workspace 1, hold super key and go 1. And here I am in the terminal. So if you want to install it and you're on an Arch-based system, you do sudo pacman s ClamAV. Hit enter and it will install. If you're on a Debian-based system, you do sudo apt install ClamAV. Hit enter and put it in or download it. Now, if you're running a Linux distribution that has a GUI software repository installed, then you could just go in the GUI to their software repository and download it, if you don't want to download it in the terminal. So once it's downloaded, you have to update the signatures, and you have to update the signatures before you do a scan. So if you don't scan for a few days or a week or two, you would want to update the signatures again. So after it's installed, you're going to do sudo fresh clam. You're going to hit enter. You're going to put your password in. And here you can see updating 2 versions of the signatures. And it's done. So you want to do this immediately after you install it, and you want to do this every time before you do a scan. So let's clear the screen. Now they also have a clam scan -h, and let's pipe it. So I'm going to pipe it into less. And this is a help page, and it shows you the different flags you can use when you do your scan. So for instance, this is one of the flags I use, -I. And you don't have to use that, but I like it, and it only prints out files that are infected. The other flag you can use is --bell, which I never use because I don't need a bell. But if you want a bell, you can use it. So if you do a scan with the --bell, it will ring a bell if it finds a virus. You can see here, sound bell on virus detection. Another flag I use is --detect-PUA. And what that's going to do is it's going to detect possibly unwanted applications. And I also use this flag down here, include PUA catalog. This loads this loads PUA, which is possible unwanted applications signatures from a category catalog. So I always use that flag. Now there is this flag here, which I've never used, and they warn you to be careful. So --remove will automatically remove infected files and it's warning you to be careful. Now, sometimes this Clam program detects things that it thinks are viruses, but they're really not. So it could automatically remove a file that you need to run your system. So they're warning you to be careful, and I've never used it. And as a matter of fact, I've been using Linux for 3 years and I've never had a virus. And I do a scan once, well, I do a scan every once in a while, maybe once a month, sometimes once a week. So you can use that flag if you want to. And there's another file I like to use, and it's maximum file size. By default, ClamAV will scan only small files. So I put 4,000 megabytes in there, which is 4 gig. So it will scan large files as well. And also maximum scan size. I also put 4,000 megabytes in there, which is 4 gigs. And there's one more flag that I like to use. Actually, there's a couple more that I like to use. It's this flag here, -- recursive, or -R. So you can do the -- recursive, or you can type in just a -R. And what that does is it scans directories within directories within directories and all the files within those directories and subdirectories. Another flag I like to use is to log the file, which does it takes the output from your scan and puts it into a text file to save it on your hard drive. So you can, afterwards, you can go back and look at it. Open up my .rc file. So if you want, you can make an alias, because every time you do a scan, you don't want to have to type in this huge long command. If you look at the top here on line 27, you don't want to have to type in that command every time you do a scan. And you may not even remember it, how to type it in. So I have this in my .rc file, and if you downloaded my .rc file from my GitLab repository, you'll have this in there. And what it is the alias is scan all. If I go onto my home drive or into another folder and type in scan all, it's going to do a scan. It's going to make, I have all these flags in there. So it's going to make the maximum file size is going to be 4,000 megabytes or 4 gig. The maximum scan size is also going to be 4,000 megabytes or 4 gig. It's going to detect PUA, which is possible unwanted applications. And it's going to include the PUA catalog, or the possible unwanted application catalog. It's going to do the -Rs for recursively. So it's going to scan folders within folders within folders, and all the subfolders within them, and all the files within them. The -I, it means it's only going to print out on the screen files that are infected. So the I stands for infected. So instead of printing out a whole list of all the files it scanned, it's only going to print out files that are infected. And the -L, ClamAV.log, means it's going to take the output from the scan, it's going to put it into a file, it's going to save it in a file called clam.log. And then later on, anytime I want, I can go back and look at the results from any particular date when I did my scan. So if I type in scan all in the terminal, it's going to do that type of a scan. Now let's go back to workspace 1. So I'm going to hold down the super key and press 1. And I'm going to go into my Mensch folder because there's not a lot of files in there. And that's another thing that I should mention. If you do a scan here in your home directory, it's going to scan your whole hard drive, and that could take an hour or 2, or maybe longer. Depends how big your hard drive is and how many files you have in there, and especially how many large files you have in there. Especially if you have a lot of videos, movies, a lot of music, it could take a long time to scan. So if you scan your home directory, do it overnight when you don't need to use your computer. But I'm going to CD into my Mensch directory because that's small and I only have some configuration files in there. So I'm going to do CD Mensch. So now I'm in my Mensch directory. I'm going to clear the screen, And I'm going to do just a regular scan by default. So this scan, it's going to scan my Mensch directory, and it's going to be default, that is with no flags. So I'm going to type in clam scan and hit enter. Now I know this is not going to take long because I don't have too many files in there and they're all small configuration files. And I've already done this several times to test it out. I know it's just going to take a moment. Now it's doing it by the default, so it's not going to scan recursively directories within directories that are in my Mensch folder. And it's going to print everything out, and it's not going to log it. So here it is. It printed out all the files that it scanned, and it shows every file is okay. And it even shows this file here, ZS history. It's an empty file. So I have a file there, but there's nothing in it. It's just a file with a name, but it's empty. And it shows all these other files are okay. Now, some people like to have this printout. Now, if you do a scan of a large folder or a scan of your whole hard drive or whole home directory, this list is going to be very long. So some people like this list, and if you do like this list, then don't put the flag -I in there, because the -I flag only prints out infected files. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. So here's the scan summary. It shows it scanned one directory or one folder. It scanned 24 files. Infected files were 0. It took 25 seconds. And it shows the start time of my scan and the end time of my scan. Now, once I close this terminal, this summary is going to be gone, and I'll never be able to find it again. But if you use the -L log flag, then it's going to log it into a file. It's going to log it into a text file and save it on your hard drive. So anytime in the future, you can go back and look at it. Without that log flag, once I close the terminal, clear the screen, this is going to be gone. So that is a default scan. Now, if I do scan all, it's going to scan with my flags. Now let's go back. Let's delete this for a second. Let's go to hold down the super key and go hit my 9 button. So if you see on the top there on line 27, those are the flags that I use. So if I type in scan all, it's going to do those flags. And it's going to scan all these large files. It's going to be a large scan with large files. It's going to detect PUAs and include the PUA catalog. It's going to be recursively, so it's going to do all the folders within the folders and all the files within there. It's the -I, it's only going to show infected files. And I'm going to log it to a file called ClamAV.log. So once I close the screen, I can always go back and look at it. Let's go back to workspace 1, hold the super key and hit 1. And let's do that. Scan all. Now you don't see any output because I have the -I there. It's not printing out a list of all the files it's scanning. And so it looks like it's doing nothing. It looks like your computer is frozen and it's not working, but it's working in the background. It's just going to take a second. And there it is. There's my printout. So you can see it scanned 40 directories and 82 files. Now, if you notice, this time it scanned more directories and more files because I had the -R in there. And the -R is to scan recursively, which means folders within folders within folders and all the files within them. And it scanned 82 files. It scanned more files because I have more files in there. When it's the -R is making it do it recursively. Obviously, if you have more folders, you're going to have more files. And I also have it programmed in that line there, that alias, to scan large files. So that's the thing, is that by default, ClamAV will scan only small files. So I have it set to scan files up to 4 gigs. So there's my printout. 40 directories, 82 files. Infected files were 0. Took 25 seconds, start time and end time. Now what? Now I had the flag in there, -L, to log it to the file. So now if I close the screen, oh, and before I do that, so because I had the -I in there, if there was an infected file or 2 or 3 infected files, it would list those files. So those files within this paragraph would be listed that this particular file from this directory is infected. But there's no infected file, so you can't see anything there. Now, if I can clear the screen, I can type in ls. And here it is here, ClamAV log. So there's the log file. So I'm going to vim into it. Vim ClamAV. So this is the scan here. So now it saves previous scans. So you can see this scan up here, I did on January 20th. Okay. But this is the scan I just did now. And this is the scan, oops. And this scan I did today, which is January 22nd. And there it is. So by doing the log flag, you're able to save it. So let's just get out of here. Let's clear the screen. Now, if you want to manually do some of these commands, you could do that. You could do clam scan -R, and it would just do the scan recursively. There's another flag that I like to use sometimes. Sometimes you like to do a scan and you like to exclude a directory or several directories. So I'm going to show you how to type that out. So what you would do is you could do clam scan exclude directory equals videos. And if I hit the enter, it's going to do a scan, but it's going to ignore my video directory. Let's say you want to exclude 2 directories. So you leave a space, you do -- exclude. And let's say you want to exclude your music directory. Music. And I did that wrong. Exclude -directory equals music. And of course, you could leave a space and you could type in another directory. And if there's 3, 4, or 5 directories you want it to ignore. Now, another way you could do it is, like I did it today, I went into my mensch directory. If you just want to scan one directory, go into that directory and scan it. And remember, if you're in your home directory and you do a scan, it's going to scan your whole hard drive. So you be careful, unless you have time on your hands or you're just doing a whole scan overnight. Be intentional. So let's say there's a directory or 2 or 3 directories that you always want to exclude. You can add them into your alias. Anywhere in this line, you can add them in. Just make sure they're before the quotation marks. And you just add in -- to exclude whatever directory you want, and then leave a space and exclude the next directory. So there is a way to have ClamAV running all the time and detecting all the time whether there are viruses or not. And it could even set it to automatically quarantine or cause those viruses to be deleted. But I've never used it, so I can't show you how to use it. For me, I don't think I need it. And also, I don't like to have something running all the time in the background because it uses system resources. And with Linux, I don't think it's necessary. So I just have it turned off all the time, and every once in a while, once a week or once a month, I do a scan. Also, there is a GUI front-end program you can use that's called ClamTK. And to install that, you would type in an arch sudo pacman s ClamTK and TK and hit enter. And if you're in a Debian system, you do sudo apt install ClamTK. Hit enter and install it, or you could go into software manager if you're running a more modern system, a more modern Linux system that has a GUI software manager. Just go in there and type in ClamTK and install it. And what that does, that's a GUI front end to ClamAV, and you use your mouse and you can set scans to do at certain times. You can refresh your signatures there, and I have used it in the past, and I had my system doing a scan overnight every night set at a certain time. And that's something you could also set in the terminal. You don't have to use a GUI application to do that. And that's a system ClamTK. I haven't used it in a long time. The last time I used it was probably 2.5 years ago, but I just thought I would mention that. So I'm just going to close this. I'm going to go back to workspace 1. And that is my demo about ClamAV. Be careful out there. It's dangerous on the internet. So that's ClamAV. And I showed you how to download it, how to use it, how to get help, and how to use the regular flags that I like to use. So it doesn't hurt to have it installed on your system, and it doesn't hurt to do a scan once in a while. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching. I am the Linux Mitch.